Derrick Pilot, a up-and-coming YouTuber, goes by the moniker Some Black Guy on YouTube. His Twitter handle is some_black guy. Derrick, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me.
Now, I was going to ask you about the debate, but we don't have much time left here, so let's skip straight to Black Lives Matter. Of course, we had the riots in Charlotte recently. We had the media and Rachel Maddow and MSNBC saying that, you know, they were peaceful protests, even as reporters were being attacked, set on fire, stores looted, you know, drivers attacked, people being beat up on the streets. BLM comes out, as they always do, and say, you know, how dare you lump us in with this fringe violent element? We're a peaceful group. We're not affiliated with them. Yet then they come out with this list of demands which insists that the rioters and the looters be released from prison, which doesn't really sound like a great, you know, way to differentiate yourselves from the violent element. I mean, Derrick, from everything you've seen, is it accurate as they claim to describe Black Lives Matter as a peaceful organization?
Absolutely not. At this point, you know, they're always trying to say that, they're always trying to cover and say that, yeah, that we're peaceful, you know, but when you just say that, it doesn't mean anything. It's your actions are what's really important. And the thing is, every time there's some type of incident that happens with, you know, a police officer killing a black male or something like that, then you have people that come out and riot and they say, oh, it's not Black Lives Matter. But then you have footage of people chanting, you know, Black Power, wearing Black Lives Matter shirts. And then also, you know, before Black Lives Matter really became a thing, you know, there was always police brutality and things happening like this before. And there wasn't this consistent riots. So I don't you know, it's not fair for them to say, or it's not accurate for them to say that, oh, we're just peaceful. I know some of them are trying to be peaceful. I know some of them are trying to just be there. And there's been instances where everything was nice, but then all of a sudden you have things like Charlotte, you know, you have things like Milwaukee, and you know, that is absolutely connected to Black Lives Matter.
And I mean, Derrick, I make the point over and over again, which people don't seem to pick up on. You look at their ideological guru, and I know you've talked about this in your videos, the foundational inspiration behind Black Lives Matter. Her name is chanted at every demonstration. It's cited by the founders of BLM in their original essays outlining the scope, the motivation behind BLM. It's Assata Shakur. Who is she? She's a convicted cop killer who is on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. This isn't Martin Luther King. This is a violent radical who, you know, left some of the leftist groups back in the 60s, 70s, because they weren't violent enough for her. She's now in exile in Cuba. That's their inspiration. So then they claim that they're a peaceful group. You know, it's like white supremacists saying that Timothy McVeigh is their inspiration, and then the media calling them a peaceful group. It just wouldn't happen. I mean, talk about violence. Obviously, there are peaceful people within this group. They're not all violent people. But whenever I make a video criticizing Black Lives Matter, the fact is I get a torrent of death threats, even more death threats than I get from radical Islamists. So, you know, as a black guy, you've criticized Black Lives Matter on a routine basis. What kind of heat do you get when you make those same critiques?
Well, the thing is, it's actually kind of funny because most of the criticism or heat that I get are, I would say, in the 90th percentile from black people. And they just, you know, call me things like, you know, they say I'm an Uncle Tom, I'm a traitor or whatever. And, you know, I've heard it all before. I've even made videos like saying that it doesn't even bother me. Just calling me names does not do anything to me, does not hurt my feelings. And it doesn't make any of the facts less true or anything like that. And yeah, so from like from other people, sometimes they're kind of confused. Some black people, sometimes they do hear me out. Sometimes they're like, oh, I never thought of this before. But largely, just my criticism comes from the black community, unfortunately, and they just want me to be like them. They're mad that I'm not like them, that I'm not victimizing myself, that I don't think everybody's against me. And, you know, and there's systemic racism because, you know, I don't know how there could be systemic racism when there are black people in every type of field, you know, all the way from being like a garbage person, all the way from being an astronaut. You know, you can be whatever you want to be in this country. You know, you just gotta, you know, you gotta work for it, you know, and it's not about, you know, your skin color. It's not doing anything. It's not holding you back. Like, it's only you victimizing yourself, already saying that you're a victim from the very beginning and saying that you're disadvantaged. You already put yourself at a disadvantage, you know, and like, I'm trying to tell people, especially in the black community, not to think that way. because it's poisonous, you know, and that's what's happening like all over the United States.
Well, I mean, it reminds me of Colin Kaepernick. I mean, he came out and said black people in America were oppressed, in his own words, yet, you know, 68% of NFL players are black. They're not exactly oppressed if they're getting, you know, high paid careers. Obviously, there's problems with police brutality, but if you look at the underlying narrative, that impacts both black and white. You know, five white people were killed by police on the same day that Keith Scott was killed, yet they didn't get any media attention. You know, the left criticizes the right when they bring up these kind of arguments. When they bring up, you know, black crime statistics, they say black people are overrepresented, you know, commit 50% of homicides. That's why they have more violent confrontations with police, because they're getting into these situations in the first place. But, you know, the left comes back and says, well, you don't understand. Walking while black, African Americans are targeted simply for their skin color. As a black American yourself, you know, do you feel in your day-to-day life when you're walking down the street, this genuine state, this constant fear of cops, is that a real authentic thing, or is it overblown in your experience?
Well, in my experience, for me personally, it's not a thing. I've learned from an early age when I first started driving and going down the street that if I'm, you know, minding my own business, not looking sinister in any way. And I'm not talking about my skin color. I'm talking about like certain like posture things, certain clothes that you wear. You know, those are red flags for, you know, for the police. And also, you know, even being in my car. Yeah, there has been a couple of times I've been pulled over, I think, because, you know, just because the neighborhood I lived in, there wasn't very many black people. But the thing is, nothing happened. You know, I wasn't talking back. I wasn't being like a really angry like person, and I wasn't giving the police officers any reason to have me step out of the car and tase me or whatever and have it escalate. But the thing is, I've also noticed though, just with people in general, because, you know, I would ride with so many different friends, and they would just get nervous with the police, just, you know, if they're tailing them or just even like people just naturally get nervous. And I don't think it's necessarily just like a black thing. I think people kind of around the cops, they act a certain way, they act a different way, and then sometimes it gets the police, it kind of raises a red flag where they're like, huh, this person's acting strange, let me investigate, let me check them out or something. But me, yeah, I do not like live in fear of the police. I don't think that when I'm going to go drive out my car, I'm going to go drive, I'm going to get shot. I don't think that when I see them, I usually nod, I'm like, hey, how's it going? As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't know that I was actually considering becoming a police officer, because, you know, I've always liked the idea of that, where I was living in Arizona, I'm back here again, but I was going to sign up for one of the police academies, and largely I kind of just didn't do it. But my whole point is that I don't have just this automatic disdain for the police. I don't think, you know, all cops are terrible. I think that's a stupid generalization to say that about anyone, that all this is this. And so, yeah, in short now, yeah, I have no problem. I live in no fear, like, from the police. They're fine as long as they, you know, leave me alone and everything's cool.
Well, I mean, it's strange that Lil Wayne made similar comments where they were trying to get him to get on board with BLM. And, you know, obviously he's no stranger to scrapes with the law, but even he said he's not really experienced any racism against him. Obviously, that's not the same for everyone. But another thing I wanted to touch on is there's often this argument about, as you mentioned there, the kind of demeanor, the behavior of these individuals who get into violent confrontations with police. It's influenced by the things they're wearing, their attitude, the way they're behaving. How much do you put that down to, you know, ghettos, socioeconomics, and how much do you put it down to the glorification of this gangster culture that we see coming out of hip hop and rap? Do you think that that's, you know, a significant quantifiable influence on how black people behave, is that we have this kind of glorification of this gangster culture in popular culture and music?
Yeah, I actually think that there's a major influence in that. I remember even being young, like I was kind of neutral with a lot of stuff. Like I liked metal and just like EDM and all these different things and hip hop. And then I started to gravitate a little bit more towards that because I'm like, oh, there's so many black people in it. This is cool. And I remember I started writing lyrics, and the lyrics I was writing were so ridiculous because I was like mimicking the stuff that, you know, most hip hop artists would talk about. You know, most mainstream hip hop artists would talk about this horrible, just trash, you know, and yeah, I started to realize quickly, I'm like, this is not, who I am. This is not who I want to be. And there's so many people that are still just, they're completely in it and they think that is cool. Like, I mean, yeah, I actually lived in South Central Los Angeles for a couple of years at a time. And just being there, just seeing like how people live on average, and especially when it's almost just is like, it's not, I don't see any benefit to living there. They can move out like my mom did. And it's just horrible. Like everybody wants to have a gun. Everybody wants to hang out on the corners and just, drink some 40s or whatever. And they're not really trying to do anything but that. And then they try to figure out, oh, I got to make some money. I got to make all this money and stuff. And, okay, I'll just sell some drugs because that's all these dudes were doing, they're talking about in the hip hop songs and stuff. And that's what I see. And it makes sense to me. I mean, like I said, I was almost kind of hooked into it at a certain extent. Like it somewhat influenced me until I started to just, have a little bit of common sense. And I'm like, this is stupid. And I don't, and also my mom, she would kill me. So there was that too. Like I can thank my mom for, kind of raising me to not, get me into that type of hip hop culture, because she hated that stuff.
And I mean, there is a lot of, hip hop music that goes the opposite, that encourages people not to get into that kind of lifestyle. But again, it's not picked up by the mainstream. It doesn't get picked up now. But moving on, we've had, polls recently that show the majority of Americans and even more millennials still support Black Lives Matter, even after all the riots, even after all the police shootings, the Dallas massacre of 8 cops. Amongst the African-American community, do you sense a deep well of support for Black Lives Matter? Or do you think that, people are just more disinterested? Or do you find that more, Black Americans are starting to be turned off by Black Lives Matter? What's your impression of that?
Well, there definitely are, and thanks to like channels like yours and mine and other people, there are a lot of Black Americans that are starting to see, because otherwise they weren't really seeing anything. They weren't seeing because they're just getting their news from the mainstream media, and all they were seeing was just little clips of peaceful protesting, and seeing that like, yeah, there's just this big problem with just cops killing Black people. And I'm like, it's not just that. And then when they see the rioting, when they see the videos that I put out, and then they actually get to see like, a balanced, objective, like just look at things that are going on. And then they're like, oh, I didn't know. Like, yeah, I'm getting kind of tired of this, and I'm getting tired of the mainstream media's race baiting. And so unfortunately, there's still an overwhelming amount of support for Black Lives Matter from the Black community. I think that's just from, them just being Black. And there's always been this hive mind mentality of that we're all brothers and sisters and we're all in it together, more than in any other race that I really know. So I think that just because they kind of have to do it, they have to do it. They just don't even really think about it too much. And, obviously, unfortunately, if you put something out to the contrary, it's like there's people saying that if you're against Black Lives Matter, you're against Black lives, and just that, they're like, oh, I don't want to be against Black lives. I'm Black myself. I have to be, that kind of stuff where I'm like, nah, man, this is just another, poisonous ideology, unfortunately. And like I said, I know there's good pockets. Sometimes every once in a while, they do talk about some issues, that I can be like, all right, this is a problem. But I just overall, I don't like what's happening, like say riots and stuff. I'm like that. If there's any riots coming from any type of group or something like that, I don't care what type of group it is. I'm not down for it. It's just not a good thing. And I know as we keep moving forward, hopefully, less and less people will be on this bandwagon of just blindly supporting Black Lives Matter.
And the funny aspect to this from a UK perspective, they had a huge Black Lives Matter protest recently, which shut down an airport. The people went to court, and literally every one of them was a privileged white upper class person whose, parents had bought them a £2 million swank pad in London. They all had triple-barreled or quadruple-barreled names. So again, as he said, there's this narrative, well, if you oppose Black Lives Matter, you must hate Black people. Well, no, actually, it's an ideology. It's not a race. Just like feminism is an ideology, it's not a gender. We'll be back with Derrick Pilot after the break. This is The Alex Jones Show Live. Breaking news at Infowars.com. Stay tuned. We're back. It's The Alex Jones Show Live final segment. We're talking to Derrick Pilot, who is an up-and-coming YouTuber. Go and check out his great videos. Now, Derrick, we've got a few minutes left here. I want to give you a chance to plug your channel at the end. But just for the next couple of minutes, YouTube censorship. We had the demonetization scandal a few weeks back. You know, that got a ton of media attention. This has got significantly less. It's called YouTube Heroes. Tell us why this is such a concern for free speech and for content creators on YouTube.
Well, the thing that really concerns everybody is because of it basically made you get a lot of points for doing certain things. And a couple of things you get points for is like flagging content. So you can flag some videos and you'll get rewarded for doing so. And the reason why a lot of people are concerned, including myself, is the flagging system is already flawed. They already have like very flawed things, like say even copyright claims. Pretty much anybody, even if you use fair use, you can just copyright claim and then, you know, they'll monetize, they'll claim your money. There's so many things that are kind of wrong that need to be fixed. And now they're kind of like encouraging to flag more videos. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to do that. And then when you get to a certain tier, you can mass flag videos. And the thing is, I'm like, there's people with vendettas, you know, that will want to take your channel down, especially people that are, you know, exercising free speech and that are against censorship. There's a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of people on the left, or the social justice warriors as people call them, that are just trying to censor everybody. They don't want you to say anything. They want you to think a certain way. And they're going to be the people that are going to try to police you. Now, you know, it's very early, and since they try to do some damage control, look like they actually try to even switch up the video and kind of reword some things here and there without anybody, trying to make sure it like nobody would notice. So you can already see that they are trying to like, oh, you know, this was a really bad idea. So I'm actually, with the backlash that they're getting from a lot of the content creators, I think maybe something, I don't know if they'll really take it, if they're going to really push forward with like the things, because it's not all bad. The YouTube Heroes thing isn't just completely across the board. There's some things that are good. For example, like you can get rewarded for putting subtitles on people's on videos. But the thing is, to the contrary, I guess some people are saying that, oh, they're doing that because they want you to, they want to be able to find out what's being said in your video. So maybe it would make it easier to identify what content is inappropriate, you know, and not advertiser friendly. Like say mine, for example, I use a lot of profanity because it's just how I talk. I mean, you know, I'm just being all good and respectful now. But like that's what some people are saying. It is very troublesome. It is very worrisome because it seems like they keep doing some stuff that is just making it really hard for you to just be yourself and to really like get the truth out there or just speak your mind. And it's very like, I'm very concerned because I mean, this is right now, this is my livelihood, you know?
Exactly. And I mean, I've already got messages from SJWs, you know, salivating over how they're going to censor my videos. Just in the final minute here, tell people how they can find you on Twitter, how they can find you on YouTube.
Okay, so if you just go to YouTube and type in Some Black Guy, my videos will pop up, or, you know, youtube.com/someblackguy, whatever, it'll pop up. And on Twitter, you can find me at some_black_guy. Those are the two things. I'm on Twitter daily, so you can keep up with me. I do a lot of interesting stuff and talk and say a lot of interesting things on there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I have other social media, but those two things right there are like, you know, keep up with my videos and keep up with my Twitter.
Okay, we're always very keen to have new independent voices on the show. So there goes another. This interview will be up on my YouTube channel tomorrow. So that's all well and good. Go and check out Derrick's videos. Derrick Pilot, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.